guess underrepresented and overrepresented can be, I guess for the sake of social media, we'll focus on algorithms. And algorithms affect what we see, so based on what we click on. And usually for overrepresented environmental topics, usually it's rated from things that affect us the most by danger priority. So for instance, the wildfires in Portugal, they're all over the news, which is great, right? You've got a lot of communication happening, but the problem is that once the danger fades away, so does the issue. So the issue is that most of our things that affect climate, that are affecting the climate crisis are based on danger, and they just fade into obscurity, and we don't really try to mitigate it from happening again. It's like walking through a city in India, like New Delhi for instance, and you have someone dying from smog, but all of a sudden people just forget smog exists. So I would say in that regard the algorithm is really problematic. And another area where I think it's underrepresented is specifically the cuteness effect for animals. For instance, we are more inclined to protect organisms and species that are cute on the media, and in terms of protecting biodiversity, I think it's important that each species gets equal treatment. So this is a very problematic issue. So yeah, I would say specifically just the algorithm and the media coverage.
I think the issues that are overrepresented in the media are air pollution, climate change, the burning of fossil fuels, deforestation, especially in the Amazon forest. And all these issues are super important, but I think that there are other pertinent issues that we should be discussing so that citizens can be more aware and can make the necessary changes that they need to help the environment. And some issues that are underrepresented, I think a really big one that I haven't seen like the media talk about is the mining of rare materials in developing countries, like a lot of African countries like the Congo these metals are being extracted for stuff such as our phone, our TVs and computers, and it's causing deforestation, contamination of water, and just really destroying the earth, and we really need to be focusing on that.
Let's be honest, in the news today we don't talk a lot about environmental topics and problems. What they do talk a lot about is the results, the consequences of the climate change. So they talk a lot about the wildfires, about the droughts, about the flooding. They talk about what they can see, but they don't talk about the cause, about the actual climate change, and they don't link it. What we want to see is solutions. We want them to show us how we can switch our lifestyles. We want them to focus on what we can do rather than the pessimistic narration that we have going on today. Today, it's our job to stay informed. Unfortunately, the large news don't speak to large audience about these subjects, so it is each and everyone's job to stay informed. There exist loads of independent news agencies and social media accounts that you can follow to know more about these subjects.
The most covered environmental issue over the past year seems to have been plastic use and pollution. Documentaries such as BBC's Blue Planet 2, which have focused on the effects of microplastic on marine wildlife, ignited public interest ever since its publication in 2017. While reducing our plastic usage is important, the impact that meat consumption has on our environment and specifically on climate change is often underrepresented in the media. Studies showed that the primary reasons for people reducing meat consumption are personal health and animal welfare, while the impact it has on sustainability is often overlooked. In 2017, the UN Food and Agriculture Organization estimated that the production of meat, dairy and eggs contributed roughly 14% to the global greenhouse emissions. However, this number doesn't even account for the following environmental impacts. Firstly, use of land and forests. Livestock uses 75% of all the agricultural land, and 40% of the current pastures were forests in the past, which could have absorbed the greenhouse gases from the air. Second, biodiversity. Livestock production is largely responsible for making the soil and underwater environment too toxic for life, which can alter the species composition of natural ecosystems, reducing biodiversity and ecological resilience. It also contributes to water pollution by pesticides, antibiotics, and heavy metals. And lastly, water use. In 2010, OECD reported that around 70% of global freshwater withdrawal was used by agriculture. It is estimated that the livestock sector uses approximately 10% of the estimated annual global water flows. And one simulation even showed that around 1,000 liters of water could be used to produce just 1 liter of milk.
On the fires that are currently ravaging Portugal. 121,000 acres part of a bigger pattern that's also being seen across other Mediterranean countries, where the summers are hotter and drier because of climate change, and therefore their forests are more prone to destruction. These fires have a huge impact on the local communities, the economy, the wildlife, as well as destroying forests. By shining a spotlight on this issue, we can help people become more aware of the subject, help people learn more about what they need to do in this sort of situations, and also, of course, help tackle climate change.
Yes, every individual action matters. Even though it may seem small, it can create a ripple effect that can have a big impact on the entire society. For example, us as international uni students, we can focus our energies around using public transportation, making efficient energy choices for our devices and our settings, and also making green dietary choices. This may have benefit for our individual carbon footprint. Nonetheless, systemic change is also needed. Only individual change will not be enough. Therefore, we can also support green businesses, green policies, and just overall raise awareness. Together we can do it.
Even if you have the feeling you're living like a vegan lifestyle and don't book that many flights, you might have the feeling you don't change anything because you're only like a single individual.
Yeah, but everyone actually can make a change. So, for example, if you buy less meat, buy local food, you could also help to reduce the local demands. So then eventually you still make a contribution to reduce the carbon emission.
To be honest, there's so many things that we can do to actually reduce our impact, but it first comes to changing our lifestyles, changing our habits, changing our actual lives. Some easy actions that are quite easy to implement would be to switch to greener transport modes. So that's cycling, walking, public transport in your everyday life. That's the train for your holidays. We could also reduce our meat intake, our red meat intake, and be careful on the food waste that we produce. So that's buying less in stores, and when you're going to restaurants that have larger portions, you can share a meal. But I think overall what we need to remember is that the idea of the carbon footprint was created by the British Petroleum, which is a very pollutant fuel company, to shift the blame onto you. So our individual actions do matter. However, we can't do this without the help of the government and the actual companies. So don't forget, your actions matter, but your voice matters too. So don't hesitate and go and put pressure on your country's leaders so that they can hear you and they can hear us.
Considering the fact that vegan diets have a significantly lower impact on greenhouse gas emissions, water use, eutrophication and biodiversity, with results ranging from 25% to 46% compared to those of meat eaters, one way you guys could instantly reduce your carbon footprint is to make a conscious decision today, on National Sustainability Day, to choose a vegetarian or vegan option at the cafeteria.